All right, folks, I got a very special guest joining Nino's Corner today, John Burke, who is a researcher and investigator of near-death experiences, best-selling author, New York best-selling author of Imagine Heaven, and he has his own podcast, Imagine Heaven. Folks, welcome to this extremely important podcast. It's going to be very beneficial for me to learn through my past experiences what they meant, what it all means, the questions on life. John Burke, I hope, delivers the answers. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, great to be here, David. I'll try my best.
Well, I had a pretty rambunctious, crazy life growing up. But I feel, I had two near-death experiences myself. And like I said before we started recording, I didn't see anything, and that's been bothering me for a very long time. But now the second half of my life, like I said, it requires a lot of depth. So I'm all about finding out the mystery as much as I can, at least. So I hope you can help me with that.
Well, I hope so. That was kind of that was my journey as well. My whole getting into this was an accident. I was an agnostic. I was just partying, doing, a lot of the same stuff probably. And my dad got cancer.
Cool.
And I guess just to back up a little more, I was a very curious kid growing up. I've always had a very analytical mind. I studied engineering. I became an engineer. And it's kind of like my mind is always asking the skeptical question, like, how do you know? Where's the evidence? So I had heard about God, about Jesus, and I just kind of said, there's no evidence. Jesus is probably a good man, made legend. God, who knows? There's just you just don't know, right?
Right.
And
it's a mystery
I was going
to
along.
everybody. I don't care how strong someone is in their faith. It's still a mystery to everyone. And that's what plagues humanity. We don't know what's after this.
Well, and I think there's truth in that it's still a mystery, and there's a lot, you can come up with any argument you want to. However, what I discovered was, for me, overwhelming evidence. I was blown away. But it all started when my dad got cancer. So he gets cancer and he's dying. He's on hospice. And someone gave him the very first book, that the first study that coined the term near experience. So we're talking, 4 decades ago. And I saw it on his bedside table and picked it up, and I was like, what is this? And I start reading, couldn't put it down. I read the whole thing in one night, because here are people who clinically died, like no heartbeat, no brainwave, and yet they're consistently claiming, and there were probably about 70 of them in there that I'm reading these stories. They're claiming that they were more alive than ever before, in a place more real than this has ever felt. Many of them in the presence of this God of light, who is love unconditional. Many of them talked about seeing Jesus, and I don't believe any of it, right? And I'm like, what the heck is this? So it kind of stopped me, and I was like, well, maybe this is the evidence I've been demanding, or at least the beginning of it. So that kind of opened me up, and I started this journey trying to really discover. And because so many of them were talking about, this God of light and love and Jesus, I started studying the Bible, and I dug in deep. And over the next number of years, man, I found so much evidence. And then it became personal for me as well. So over the last 40 years, I ended up going from a career in engineering actually to becoming a pastor, and eventually starting. Yeah. And I started,
one book ignited the journey. Your dad being sick, and then you coming across that book on the table, and that just lit the spark.
It started it, but I probably would not have connected it all. And that's actually what I'm into now. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to show that, all these near-death experiences, and by the way, there are millions of them. I know I've personally studied or interviewed about 1,500 of them, but there are millions of them all over the globe.
When you say you've personally studied them, you've met these people in person and
Yeah.
sat down with each and every one of these people,
Well, not
1,500?
all 1,500, because you got to remember, I've been doing this for 40 years. So this was a compulsion I had after my dad died. I came to faith. I came to faith in Jesus. And then I become a pastor, and we started a church for skeptics. So our motto was, come as you are, no perfect people allowed.
Oh, wow.
And it was because that was me. I was like, I didn't realize how good God was and how real and how much evidence there really is. And like I said, I was curious. I was always asking questions. I just felt like nobody either knew or had time. And there wasn't a place where it was okay to doubt and question. And so we created a place like that here in Austin. Turns out there are a lot of us. We saw literally thousands and thousands of people come from every background, walk of life. That's why I was asking you about your journey to sobriety, because we helped a lot of people come out of drug addiction.
So I'm at a crossroads right now, right? My parents are sick. Both of them are in their twilight years. They're 86, 91. My dad's on the feeding tube, oxygen.
Mm,
It's just bad, right? I know the day is coming with him and my mom. My mom's dementia is very severe. So now I'm like really asking a lot of questions, right? Like it's just, I have to know now because I know the time is coming. And not to mention what happened to me in my life with almost dying myself twice, and in 2011 when I went into cardiac arrest, but I don't remember anything, and that really bothers me, and I have to find answers now. So now I'm on this journey with my past and also being confronted with what's happening with my parents. Like I have to know.
mm.
It's just like I can't. I just feel like I'm now in this sped up process of having to find out. I'm just not comfortable not knowing anymore.
Yeah. Well, and that was me. I was on this journey of truth. Like, what's the truth about all this stuff? And seeing that these near-death experiences, that began it. But as I'm working as an engineer out in California, and I'm coming across more and more of these near-death experiences, and I'm studying the Bible more and more, and I'm trying to put the pieces together. And some of the things that at first I was thinking, well, maybe these are just hallucinations, right? Maybe it's, and there are all these in my new book, Imagine the God of Heaven. I go through the 10 points of evidence that convince me this cannot be a brain-based experience. In other words, it's something beyond just something happening in our brains. But that was, those have been some alternate theories that I looked into: neurotransmitters flooding the brain, at the point of death, kind of the DMT effect, right? But none of those explain the evidence. And I'll give you a couple of things that convince me. And like I said, I put 10 points of evidence in Imagine the God of Heaven, but just a few of them. One, verifiable observations. So when people clinically die, they commonly say, and by the way, this is what I've been about. I've traced about 40 commonalities of what people all around the globe experience, and it's consistent. And
So no matter what faith or religion, they all see the same thing. So
well,
that
not exactly. And by the way, that's one of my points of evidence. So for instance, they all leave their bodies, right? But they say they're still themselves. In fact, more themselves than they've ever been, and they have a spiritual body, but it has like new powers. I mean, it's like we expand. And the way I like to explain it, David, is imagine, we're living this three-dimensional experience, right? But we're limited by 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. But imagine if we were living this on a flat black and white painting, in your room.
okay.
And death means separation. So at death, our soul leaves this physical realm of 3 dimensions. So imagine in your 2-dimensional world at death, and because you're in 2 dimensions, you have up and down, you have side to side. You can't conceive of out or in. There's no third dimension in your flat world, right? So you live in this black and white flat painting, but at depth, your soul peels off that two-dimensional picture, and now you come out into this three-dimensional world of color that was around you all the time, but you had no perception of it because you didn't have the experience of that dimension. So you're having this extrasensory experience, and then imagine getting resuscitated or pressed back into the flat world. And now you have to explain the experience of three dimensions and color, but in two-dimensional black and white terms.
Like trying to describe the colors of the rainbow to a blind person. You can't
exactly. And so, you know, that's what I think is going on now. However, the commonalities, and in Imagine Heaven, my first book, I trace about 40 commonalities, and I'm showing how it's what God's been revealing in the Bible all along. It's all there, and I'm showing how it all fits together, and how I really believe that He's just giving us hope of what's to come in our modern day, in our global day. So one of the points of evidence, though, that it's not just brain-based is this high overlap of consistency, yet each near-death experience is unique. So for instance, like 32% of people will have a life review. More like 70% have this experience of leaving their body, but still having a body. 57% see deceased family members.
So you do see loved ones again.
Yeah. Never, though, deceased family members or family members who are still alive. They're always deceased. And so there's this great reunion. But the other point, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, do the people that cross over, are they all from different countries and religions and faiths? I mean, do they all see the same thing? Like, is someone in China or like a Buddhist, do they see Buddha? A Christian or Catholic see Jesus? Do Muslims see Muhammad? I mean, what are the similarities and differences here from different backgrounds and religions?
Well, can I go over a couple of other ones? Because I'm going to get to that.
Sure.
Yeah, because I think that's a big point of evidence. So these commonalities are consistent, and yet they're not all the same. So if it's just a brain-based thing, why don't 100% have a life review and 100% see deceased family members, right? And 100% see God? And so that's one point of evidence. The second, though, that's huge is verifiable observations. So when people leave their body, when they clinically die, they often say they were up above their body watching what's going on in the room where their resuscitation is happening. So like I said, imagine, you know, you leave that flat painting, but you can still see what's going on in your flat world of that painting. And that's exactly what they are saying. And when they're resuscitated, they can give observations that they should not have been able to make, because again, they had no brain waves, many of them. So where are these observations being recorded? So
consciousness does not derive from the brain then. Consciousness is outside of the brain.
Yeah, we really do have a soul.
Is this just an interface to decode our reality? But I mean, obviously it's not even needed if consciousness is outside of the brain, correct? Are we just antennas for the Ethernet of super consciousness?
Well, I think our bodies are somewhat of a conduit to this finite world, and we are very limited. So many people say it's kind of like when you shed this body, it's like all of a sudden you feel free and you feel yourself, but you're not constrained in the way that we feel. But we're not just this collective consciousness. We're still ourselves. I mean, everybody is still themselves. Now, at the same time, and we can get into this, but there is an interconnectedness that we don't experience here. But there's still an individuality. So these verifiable observations, though, are fascinating. Like, and it's not just me. So I've been researching these for 40 years, but many medical doctors, like cardiologists, started back when I did. So one cardiologist I interviewed, Dr. Pim van Lommel's in Holland. And he actually, and these cases have been written up in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 900 scholarly peer-reviewed journals. And, Pim van Lommel was another cardiologist in Holland who had a guy brought into the ER, and he had been found dead in a park, heart attack, cardiac arrest. And so they brought him in. It took about 20 minutes for the ambulance to get him.
Do they know how long he was dead for?
Well, it took 20 minutes for the ambulance to get from the park to the ER, so at least 20 minutes. They were going to intubate him and shock him, and the nurse saw that he had dentures, so took the dentures out, put him in the lower drawer of the crash cart. They shock him. They get his heart going, but he was never conscious in the ER. They move him out to another room. A week later, he comes to. He comes out of coma.
Okay.
A week later.
Out of a coma.
Out of a coma.
So
and
he did die.
Yeah, well, he had no heart and no brainwaves.
But then he went into a coma. They resuscitated him, brought him back into a coma.
They got his heart going again.
Okay.
And I guess he was either in a coma or they put him in a medically induced coma.
Only reason I say this is because there's so many people. I know a few people that were in comas and they don't remember anything. They just have no recollection they were even alive. I mean, when I was in a coma for a couple of days, I didn't even know I existed.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking this. Okay.
All right. Well, hold on to that. We'll get to it.
Okay.
I think I'll ease your burden, but helping you see kind of the evidence of this. So this guy is complaining, "Hey, you lost my dentures. You lost my dentures. Find my dentures." And then he sees a nurse in the hallway and says, "That nurse, get that nurse. That nurse knows where my dentures are." And then he starts to explain that he was up above in the ER room. He explained all the doctors and nurses that were there, what they said, what they did, and how that nurse took his dentures and put it in the lower drawer of that cart with all the bottles on it. Is how he described it. And they went, and sure enough, that's where they found his dentures.
No way he could have known this.
No. And Dr. Pim van Lommel, this cardiologist, wrote this up in The Lancet, Europe's most prestigious medical journal, because he had studied many of them, just like I have. And there are multiple medical doctors who have studied many of them, just like I have, and have come to the same conclusion. So these verifiable observations, actually another Dr. Jan Holden, did a study of 100 cardiac arrest patients, or about 100, and all who had had near-death experiences and claimed to be above their body and made observations that could be verified or, discredited. And she found that 92% of their observations were completely accurate. 92%. And this is like resuscitation techniques, what happened in another 6% were mostly accurate. A few details might vary. And then only 2% were inaccurate. And that turned out to be one patient in the study.
So does cardiac arrest mean you flatline?
Yeah.
So if I flatlined.
Yeah.
How come I didn't see anything?
Okay, I'll go ahead and go there. So not everyone that flatlines comes back with the memory of a near-death experience. And that's one of my biggest kind of questions. Like, what does that mean? It's actually only about 20% that have a flatline event that have a near-death experience. So you're more in the majority, not the minority.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that
I don't think it means anything. I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Okay.
Now I will say though that there have been cases, and in Imagine Heaven, I report on some of these cases. In Imagine Heaven, you read about 120 of these cases, like from their perspective of what happened. And one of them, the cardiologist was resuscitating the patient, and he kept crying. Every time he would bring him back, he would say, "I'm in hell. Help me. You got to do something. I'm in hell." And then he would have an arrest again. And then he'd bring him back. And he did this, and it was like 4 times. And this is pretty bizarre, but this is what Dr. Rawlins, the cardiologist, said. This is like in the late 70s that this happened. And the guy goes, help me, you got to do something for me. And Dr. Rawlins, he didn't believe in God, he didn't believe in anything, but he had been brought up in church and all that. And so he said, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a priest, just leave me alone and let me get your heart going. And he goes, you got to do something for me. And because he was panicked so much, Dr. Rawlins just said, okay, say this: Jesus, forgive me. And if you will save my life, I'm on the hook for you forever. And that's what he did. And then a week later, so then he got his heart going after that. He had one more cardiac arrest event, got his heart going. Rawlins was totally tripped out.
Wow.
Okay. For the next few weeks. And he even said he dusted off his Bible and started like reading it. The guy comes back in for a follow-up and he said, okay, you got to tell me what was going on when you're crying out about seeing hell and they're going to get you and all that. And he couldn't remember any of it.
Oh, man.
And all he said was he remembered being in this lush, beautiful valley, this heavenly valley, and his mother, who had died when he was like 2, was across the valley, and he saw her there, and this valley of light, and then he revived. And that's all he remembered. So he didn't remember the hellish experiences, but he did remember the heavenly one.
Interesting. Wow.
But I think, I don't think you can draw a conclusion even from these near-death experiences. Like, there are hellish near-death experiences, there are heavenly near-death experiences, but these aren't conclusive, because some people who love God and believe in God, he lets them see both. And so sometimes it's just, I don't think these are indicative of what happens when we fully cross over. And by the way, that's one of the, they come to a border or a boundary in this experience, and they say, I knew if I crossed over that border or boundary, it's represented different ways, I couldn't come back to this life, to this earth.
Do they all kind of levitate over their body? And when do they go into this, I don't know, this tractor beam of white light? I mean, does everyone experience that? And is it after they go into the white light, they see their family members? What's the process? What is the commonality of that?
Yeah. So I will give you kind of a typical, and they're not all always consistent. For instance, some are there above their body, and then they see a dark kind of like tunnel or portal open up, and they go through it, and it's like a dark tunnel. And then they come out in this place of exquisite light. Others, it's this tunnel of light. Others, they're just often going. It's almost like through the universe in a parallel dimension or something. And they come to this heavenly paradisical kind of place. But the third thing that convinced me as a skeptical engineer, and I'll tell you one of their stories that kind of illustrates all those or a lot of the commonalities, is when people blind from birth have a near-death experience, they can see.
Really?
Yes. And even though when they are resuscitated, they still are blind, they can report things that they saw while out of their body, not only going on in the room, but also they report the same commonalities of this near-death experience as sighted people. So for instance, Vicky, I report on 6 different blind or near blind near-death experiencers in both my books. But Vicky was 22. She was in a car accident. She's up above, seeing the hospital room and this body and all the doctors and nurses freaking out. And she recognized, she's trying to figure out, what is this new perception? Because she's never seen before, but she's perceiving things, right? And then she realizes, I think I'm dead, because she recognizes that she had really long hair and she had a orange blossom on her wedding ring, and she noticed it. And so she's like, well, I know where I'm going. I'm out of here. And she takes off up through, and it's like passes through the roof of the next floor and the next floor in the hospital, and then out. She can see like the grounds and the streets around, and then this dark portal opens up and she goes into it and she's traveling. And many times, so that's all a commonality, again, with slight variations. And they travel. They say it's like the speed of light or faster, if there's possibility. And they come to this place. So Vicky comes out into this place. She said, of tremendous light, and it was a garden, and it was beautiful. It's like grass and trees and flowers and birds. And she said, but the light was something that was very emotional for me. She said, because the light wasn't like light on earth. And by the way, this is a commonality of both sighted and blind near-death experiencers saying this about this light of heaven. And they say it's light that is love, and it's coming out of everything. And so she said that it was like light and love was coming out of the grass and out of the trees and out of the birds, and even out of this group of people coming toward her to welcome her. And they turn out to be her grandmother, Diane, and Debbie, her two friends that died in the home for the blind she grew up in. They died at age 7 and 9. And yet she said they were in their prime. That's another commonality, that people are about age 30 consistently. They were healthy, they were whole, even though they had many issues, when they were on earth, and blind, but they had other issues as well. She sees them healthy and whole. And but here are a couple of wild things, and this is what I love to do, is make the connections. Jesus said in Matthew 13, use your worldly resources to make friends, so that when it's all gone, they will welcome you into an eternal home. And a consistent thing that near-death experiencers say is they had a welcoming committee, and it's their loved ones and it's their friends,
like a soul family.
It's a reunion of the people you knew and loved on earth.
And they look like, every single one of those people look like they would in their prime.
Yeah. Now, sometimes I think we can appear to each other as the other would desire. So sometimes, like this one guy, Don, he didn't go through the tunnel. He was run over by an 18-wheeler. It took the jaws of life. The EMS came, declared him dead, and it took the jaws of life 90 minutes to cut his body out, and then he revives. And he said he was just instantly there before the gates of this walled city. And it's a city. And these people are coming out to him, and it's his grandfather, and it's his friend who was a football player with him, who died in a horrible accident where he was decapitated, but he's not decapitated. And his grandfather was a lumberjack, so he had like only 3 fingers on this one hand, but he had all his fingers. And he looked like his grandfather, but felt like he was a teenager, which, again, you recognize people more for the essence of who they are. But yeah, a commonality is that we're all in our prime. We're about 30. So which at my age, I'm really looking forward to, by the way.
You look great, man. So let me ask you this. So what about, like, when do the back to the different faiths and religions or different parts of the world, do they see Buddha, Jesus Christ, Muhammad, or do they all see Jesus? Or do a lot of these people that you talk to have a religious background or none at all? And they see the same thing?
All of it. And let me mention one thing about the blind seeing the light of heaven coming out. That's in the Jewish prophet Isaiah. In Isaiah 60, wrote that in 680 BC, 680 years before Jesus. That prophet writes, there's no sun or moon in heaven, for God is its light. And then John, Jesus' closest disciple, who writes the book of Revelation and claims that he was taken to heaven and shown it, describes this whole, in Revelation 21, describes this holy city that all these near-death experiencers have described to me. And it's the same. And I'm talking,
And none of them know each other. None of them read the books. They're all.
one of them was a Hindu raised in India and never
Wow.
read the Bible in his life. I'll tell you about him because it's fascinating. But John in Revelation says the city has no need of sun or moon, for the glory of God is its light. And remember, John wrote, God of. Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but have the light of life. And so this light, and it says the nations will walk in that light. So there's no sun or moon. The glory of God is his light, and the nations will walk in that light. And you have blind, near-death experiencers describing that. How do you explain? That's not you can't explain that. It's not brain-based. There's no way.
So
go
ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to jump to your question about the world's religion. So yeah, so that was my, after writing Imagine Heaven, which is kind of the 40 commonalities in this journey, because there's so many more things that are so cool. It's like, it reads like science fiction, but it's consistently what people say. But I wrote a follow-up book called Imagine the God of Heaven, because one of the wildest things is that 48% of these near-death experiencers around the world consistently describe this God that they encounter. They never wanted to leave his presence because of his unconditional love and acceptance. And just, it's like your best friend. You just didn't know it. Someone who's been through you through every high, every low, gets you more than you get, and is crazy about you. I mean, that's, and consistent describing the same God every continent. So I actually, every religious background, Imagine the God of Heaven, you're getting to hear their experience, and I'm showing you how it all aligns with who God has been revealing himself to be all along. So for instance, like Bibi was in Tehran, and she's on my podcast, by the way. And Brad is a blind person on my podcast. So you can hear it from them. You can see it from them. Bibi is in Tehran. She has a heart attack. She was expecting the Prophet Ali to come and judge her, because that's the expectation in Shia Islam. And that's not what happened. She said this royal man of light in this robe of light comes, and she knew he was God. And he says to her, I am he who is. And boom, she's back in her body. But with a joy.
Jesus, I mean.
Well, so she's back in her body with a joy and a peace she had never felt. And so she starts on this search. Who is this God who said, I am he who is? Well, she discovered it's the same God of light who, remember, if you've read the Old Testament, revealed himself to Moses in 1400 BC on Mount Sinai as this light in this bush that didn't burn the bush up. So same thing, brilliant light, God of light, who says to Moses, I am who I am. So in Farsi, she translated as I am he who is, but same guy, right?
Was she still a devout Muslim afterwards, or did she change completely?
Well, no, initially she was. I mean, she built the mosque that whatever the president's council went to. So she was very well-to-do. So it was about a year, and then she was seeking. And it's interesting because the Bible says, God says in the Bible, if you seek me with all your heart, you will find me. And she came to the conclusion that, yes, indeed, this who I saw was Jesus, and he's the same God who revealed himself to Moses. And she became a follower.
She became a Christian.
She did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then
had to flee Iran.
Wow. So let's think about this for a second. What about so she was a completely different religion. She was Muslim. So why didn't she, if she was in the wrong religion, a lot of people would say, well, why wasn't she in hell? Why didn't she go to hell? Why didn't she see hell?
Well, I mean, I think the same, I think it's the same reason Paul didn't. So Paul, who wrote a good chunk of the New Testament, right? He didn't believe in Jesus. He was one of the Pharisees who had Jesus crucified, and he was running around right after Jesus' death and, supposed resurrection, arresting and having Christians jailed and even killed because he thought this was bunk and a false Messiah. And he's on his way to arrest Christians in Damascus. This is in Acts chapter 9, when this brilliant God of light appears to him. Sound familiar? And he falls to his knees and says, "Who are you, Lord?" Because he knows this is God. And he says, "I am Jesus, your Savior."
Oh, wow.
See, I'm Jesus who you're persecuting. Now, this is very important. He doesn't say anything else to him. He doesn't tell him, the gospel. He doesn't explain, go and do this, go and do that. He later sends a man named Ananias to Paul to explain all that Jesus did. And then Paul still has a choice because he had a lot to lose. He was a wealthy, powerful Pharisee. But he chose to follow Christ. And this is exactly what we're seeing in the world. So Dr. Rajiv Parti grew up in India, Hindu, became a medical doctor, came to the United States, kind of put all faith, religion stuff aside, didn't believe in it, just pretty much a materialist. And he was an anesthesiologist, chief anesthesiologist at Bakersfield Heart Hospital. Okay. So this is and by the way, these people I've interviewed are spine surgeons, anesthesiologists, lawyers, bank presidents, commercial airline pilots. They have no reason to make up crazy, wild stories of dying, going to heaven, and seeing God. It only hurts their career. And yet they say it was the most real thing that ever happened, and it all correlates. That's what's just mind-blowing. So here's this Hindu anesthesiologist, did not believe in near-death experiences, and he had brought people back who said all these things about, I went to heaven and I saw this God of light, and he would give him a shot of antipsychotic drug.
Wow.
And then he had one.
Wow. So he has one himself.
He has one himself. He does start off in this hellish place. And he said to me, I was repenting because he realized, he knew, he had become addicted to opioids. He had an intestinal issue, but he had become addicted to opioids. He'd become kind of emotionally abusive, like his father was abusive to him, blah, 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 to his son. And anyway, he is then rescued from there. And by the way, most of the hellish experiences that I've interviewed cry out to God and he rescues them.
Wow. Yeah.
And I know 7 people, cocaine addicts, atheist, tenured college professors, Buddhists, Hindus who came back and from this hellish experience and are now Christian pastors today.
Wow.
Because it was that real to them. So here you have Rajiv. He is rescued. He was taken by 2 Christian angels through this tunnel to this place of exquisite beauty, mountains and trees and flowers. And he's like flying over it with them. And they bring him to this God of light who is love. He gets a life review. This is another commonality. So interestingly, time doesn't work the same way on the other side. It's just what Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, said to the Lord: a day is like 1,000 years and 1,000 years is like a day. And that's what they say. It's like time. I didn't know it was minutes or hours or decades.
Wow.
They would say time doesn't work the same. So they have a life review and they re-experience their life, and they consistently come back knowing God is love and how we treat one another, how we love one another. Because the life review is all about relationship. Usually that's the emphasis. How we treat one another is what matters most. And of course, that's exactly what Jesus said in Matthew 22. you know, you want to sum up the whole Bible, love God, love your neighbor as yourself. That fulfills all the commands of Scripture. That's what Jesus said. And they are testifying to this all over. So Rajiv then later again sees this God of light, and he says, "Who are you, Lord?" And again, this is a Hindu anesthesiologist who said, "Out of the light steps a man with a beard in a robe of light, you know, still brilliant like the sun, but not hard to look at, and says to him, 'I'm Jesus, your savior.'"
Oh, wow.
And he falls to his knees and says, "Namaste."
Wow.
So you've got people, and I've got stories. Another Hindu who, like I said, he was an engineer, manufacturing engineer. He has this amazing experience of describing the holy city of God, just like John described in Revelation 21. He also sees the reality of hell, and he wants to go into this city, and he sees this God of light on a throne. And basically, it's really wild. I'm not going to give it away. It's in the books, and Santosh is also on my podcast. But he comes back seeking as well and realizes, oh my gosh, he reads the Bible and goes, everything I experienced is in there.
And all these people that you have talked to, got the testimonies from, none of them know each other, and they have all resemble the same type of experience.
They live all over the world. I mean, Swadik lives in Rwanda. He was a Muslim imam. And all these people, you can hear me interview them on my podcast, and you can read their stories in my books. So they're real people. And
so I'm just going to come at you for a moment as a skeptic, right? And I'm going to say,
Sure.
Well, have you ever given a polygraph test to any of these people, a lie detector? Have you ever tried to go to use that approach, or would that be insulting to them?
No, you know, I haven't, and I haven't been able to. You know, what I have done is, as best I can, you know, I want to look. So some people claim experiences, but they aren't clinically dead. And for me, I'm like, you know, I don't know, maybe not. But if you have a tracheotomy like Dr. Mary Neal does, and so many of them do, you paid a price for this story.
Right.
If you have hospital records like Dean Braxton does, that you had no heartbeat for an hour and 45 minutes, you got something, right?
An hour and 45 minutes.
Hospital records.
So he wakes up in a bag? I mean, where was he? Was he in the
No,
fridge?
they kept working on him. And the doctor said, I don't know what compelled me to come back and try again. Usually, you know, they usually work for 30 minutes now. But he came back and tried again. Enough, he resuscitated. But he was having a whole
doesn't the body go cold and go into rigor mortis or something like that? I mean, how does it how is he just...
I know, you know, I mean, it defies our what we know. It's miraculous, quite honestly, that it doesn't.
What's the craziest near-death experience? How long is what's the longest someone has been dead and come back in according to your testimonies?
Well, I mean, I've had Swadik, this Muslim imam. He died of blood cancer. Now, he was young. He was in his 20s, okay, and he had blood cancer. It's a fascinating story. His mom was a Hutu. His dad was a Tutsi. It was during the genocide. Tore their family apart. He actually became ended up dealing cocaine on the streets just to kind of help his family survive, and just went through a lot. But then he kind of comes back around, becomes an imam, which is a leader in the mosque, right? But when he gets blood cancer, his dad is getting the Muslims to try to do everything they can to heal him. Nothing works. The doctors gave up on him, put him on palliative care. His mom worshiped the African goddess Beko, so does all the kind of ritualistic kind of, you know,
basically like voodoo
stuff. Yeah. None of it works. So in desperation, as he's dying, his mom goes to the Anglican church, having heard that sometimes people are healed in Jesus' name, and said, will you pray for my son? I have no other option. And they said, yes, if you will also pray to Jesus. And so the whole church is praying for 7 days. Well, Swadik dies. So he dies, and he starts off in, again, this hellish place, but into this place. And there were these, I mean, he describes it. It's pretty bizarre, quite honestly. And I'll tell you, when I first started researching all this, many times I just go like, no way, this isn't true. And it was just so many of them saying such consistent things that I was like, well, dang, I don't know how else to
Can't deny it.
But into this room that he called like a butcher shop, and these horrific creatures that are going to rip him apart, steps this man of light in a white robe with a beard, holds out his hands, and Swadik sees like holes or scars in the hands. And he said, that's when I knew who this was, because the Passion of the Christ when it came to Kigali, Rwanda. And, so he says to him, I died for mankind. You are among those I died for. Never deny it and tell it to everyone.
Wow.
And boom, Swadik comes to. Okay, but he died that night. He comes to in the daytime, sits up, and a sheet falls off his face, and all these Muslims start screaming and running around. And he's like, what's going on? And he looks down to his right, and there's a 6-foot grave there. He was getting ready. He was being prepared for burial. So that's probably the craziest.
Did you talk to any of the witnesses there, or just him on this?
No, he's got witnesses. Not only that, but he is an Anglican priest today, and he's had 7 attempts on his life.
Wow.
Because you can't convert. And even his dad tried to kill him.
His own father,
because in Islam, you're an infidel and you can't convert, but he will not shut up about Jesus. And I've told him, I mean, I talked to him. I text him, he's on my podcast. Like I said, you can hear from him. And, I said, aren't you worried? You're going to get killed. And he's like, I did get killed. What are you talking about?
It's like, what do I have to
No,
fear?
I'm not worried. It's crazy. Wow. I know it. And like I said, if I hadn't interviewed so many and heard so many overlapping and knowing they don't know each other, and that's what I'm trying to do in Imagine Heaven, and then in Imagine the God of Heaven, is let you hear from them and see how it overlaps with one another from all around the world, and then with the Bible as well, to realize this is incredible hope. And that's the main message, is that God is for everyone. So many of us get the wrong idea, that God is just, he's sitting there and he's like got his arms folded. He's like, is anybody having fun down there? Well, cut it out.
Yeah, exactly. Like a strict father. Like, cut it out down there. You're right.
So many of us have the face of a father or a priest or a pastor or, some other person on the face of God, and he's not like that.
Really mad, jealous, bearded man hanging out in the clouds, pointing his finger at everyone, like, stop doing that, stop doing that. Right? Yeah, or I'll punish you.
God is the most loving, forgiving. I mean, what he did through Jesus, and people around the world confirm it. I mean, I just interviewed a girl, died in a jet ski accident, and she knew nothing about Jesus. And she said the first thing that happened is it was like put a USB drive into her and downloaded all this knowledge. And it was basically like, God's real. Jesus really lived on the earth. He really did what he did. And the only reason you're coming here is because of what he did for you.
Wow.
So it is mind-boggling, but it's also so confirming. Like, you want evidence, there is tons of evidence. And that's what I've been trying to do, is in these books show all this evidence that, quite honestly, I'd have to have more faith to be an atheist than to be a believer. but also to realize that no one is too far away from God. He's always been with you. And what he did in Jesus was, you don't have to jump through any religious hoops to know you're right with God. You don't have to be in a certain religion. You don't have to prove you're good enough or be moral enough. You know, what he did through Jesus on the cross was make a way that nothing can separate us from God except ourselves.
Gosh.
If we say to God, like, I'm fine, I don't want you, I don't need you, I'm God of my life.
That's free will. That's free will.
It's free will. And here's the key. The reason he does that is because God is love, and he created us for his love and to love one another. And you can't have love without free will. You can't. You know, I could fall in love with someone. I could buy them lots of gifts. Maybe they stick around with me, but how do I know they love me more than just the gifts?
Right.
You can't buy love. You can't force love. You could, you stick a gun to someone's head and say, love me. And maybe out of fear,
that's the ultimate test. That's the
we all
ultimate
know
test.
It's not love. And that's true even of God, that God limited himself in creating creatures that could love him back. But that means he has to let us reject him as well. And that's what hell is. Hell is not a punishment for the wrongs we've done on this earth. Hell is God giving the free will creature what it wants if it really thinks what it wants is not God. No light, love, goodness, all the things that we love about this earth, it came from the one who created it. And so it's not a party, like we used to sing.
Yeah, I mean, I see this life so different now after the incidences that happened to me, and now that I'm going into my later years, boy, do I see life different now, and especially with what I'm dealing with my parents. So I just want to say thank you for all this amazing podcast. You taught me a lot, and I think I've learned a lot from this, and I'm going to get your book, Imagine Heaven. Is there any last words you can say to my audience to give them any more hope? I mean, you already have given a lot of us hope, and like for me, that really did charge me up, and I feel a lot better, especially with the storm I'm headed into right now with my parents, and after what I've been through, so, and that's what scared me the most was like, man, I didn't see anything, and I was kind of just like, oh no, like what's gonna happen? Am I never gonna see my dad again, my mom? So
no. So I can assure you, so here's the bottom line. God wants every single one of his children, which he created us all to be like his children. Like, I'm crazy about my kids, and I'm even more crazy about my grandkids. And that's just a minute little fraction of how he feels about you and me and everyone he created. So one other crazy, wild commonality, how many people have told me that when I was with him, so first of all, it's like being with your best friend. Like, there's joking and laughter and remembering, and he is real, and he's a person, and we were created to be like him. He's not less than us. But also how many of them said, when I was with him, and I know this can't be true, but I felt like I was the only one he loved.
Wow.
Like I was his special one. And that's because he's God.
It was intimate.
He's totally for you, into you. And the only thing that can keep you from being with him is if you reject him. But all you have to do is say, God, yes to your offer of forgiveness that you offered in Jesus. Yes to your love. Yes to eternity with you, in the life as it was supposed to be.
Beautiful. John, I appreciate you coming on. I'll stop it right there. I'm going to go ahead and show the book again, Imagine Heaven, and your podcast, sir?
The Imagine Heaven podcast with John Burke.
And is that on YouTube?
It's on YouTube. It's anywhere you can get your podcasts. Beautiful. If you want to see them, of course, you got to watch YouTube. But
I recommend everyone to get the book and follow you on your podcast, because this, to me, I mean, we all need some hope and to build on our faith, and you did that to me. I'll be tuning into your podcast. So, John, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thank you, David. It was great.
God bless you. Stick with me just for a second.